I have a confession. In 20 years as a dating coach, this video is the first time I have ever used the word Rizz, and with any luck, I'll manage to go the rest of my life without ever using it again because I fucking hate the word. However, if people are using it, that is to some extent a good thing because it means people are talking about the science of getting better with women, and I'm a huge fan of that. So what I'm gonna do in this video is I'm gonna give you an absolute crash course. If this is the first time you've seen a video on game or Rizz or whatever you wanna call it, if this is the first time, these are the absolute most important things that you need to know right now. Before I get into the actually useful information that may well change your life, let me vent for just 1 second. This is why I hate the word Rizz. As far as I know, as far as I can tell, the word Rizz is derived from the word charisma, which is a fine thing. However, charisma is not game. It is a tiny slice of game. It is a tiny fraction of what game is that usually applies to the very start of game. And if you focus too much on it, you're gonna end up with a game style that is very flashy and not very effective. And in fact, when I see examples of Rizz on social media or in videos, that's exactly what I see. I see this, oh, clever line, wow, burn, that was smooth. That's not what game is. All of that upfront stuff is simply designed to get the girl's attention so that you can form a genuine connection. And there's a lot of things that come later on after that heavy charisma phase. Now, you could make the argument that Rizz is just a synonym for game and it doesn't really mean charisma, even though it derived from that. But if that's the case, just fucking use the word game. It's a fine word. Okay, rant over. Also, one last thing. Whenever I hear the word Rizz, I can't help but think of the word jizz, which is kind of a weird association. Anyway, on with the video. So putting all that aside, what is Rizz and how do you get Rizz? Well, charisma or attractiveness or suaveness or je ne sais quoi, or however you want to think of this general idea, it's not some disembodied quality that you either have or don't have. It's actually tied to very specific behaviors that you do. And that's the good news, because that means it's not something you either have or don't have. It's something you can learn. It's something you can develop. And basically, there are two sort of branches of developing this aspect of yourself. One is what we call inner game, and one is what we call outer game. Inner game is the set of beliefs you have about yourself, the world, and women that then govern your actions and govern the way you carry yourself and what you do in the world. The outer game are specific techniques you can do. So what I'm gonna do from here is I'm gonna give you 3 specific inner game techniques that are absolutely critical, and then 3 specific outer game techniques that you absolutely need as well. Inner Rizz concept number 1. There's no reason you are not enough. See, a lot of guys go through the world knowing all of their own shortcomings, knowing all their own insecurities, and thinking that they would be lucky to have a girl like them. Thinking like, I hope she likes me. I would like to win her over. That is the wrong attitude to have. Instead, you should have the attitude that she would be lucky to have you. But even beyond that, another attitude that kind of underlies all of it is the idea that you are a healthy male of the species, she's a healthy female of the species, and it's normal in any animal species for a healthy male and a healthy female to procreate, to have sex, right? If you put 2 lions together and there are no other lions, it's very likely, male and female lion, they're going to have sex. They're gonna make little baby lion cubs. Same with any other animal. Same with if you were placed on a desert island with an incredibly hot girl, if it's just you and her there for a long enough time, you're probably going to mate because you are the only option. So the idea is this. There is a threshold of attractiveness that a girl needs to have you at in order to be aroused by you, and you are at that threshold level of attractiveness, which means if you spend enough time with a girl, if you're there with her at the end of the night, if she gets to know you well enough, you are enough. You are enough to have sex with her. And that's all it is. You do not have to be the most attractive man in the world. You don't have to be Brad Pitt or Cristiano Ronaldo or anything like that. You just have to be a healthy male of the species, and that is enough. In fact, if you look at evolution, most of the men who slept with women throughout human evolution were a lot worse off and worse looking than you, right? A lot of them didn't even have all their teeth. A lot of them were emaciated and malnourished. A lot of them had very poor prospects of raising kids compared to what we have in the modern day. So basically, almost every reasonable man in the modern day meets that threshold of attractive enough to sleep with a woman. And so realize there's no reason you're not enough. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to sleep with a girl. There's no reason she wouldn't be attracted to you. So the question isn't why would she like me? The question is why wouldn't she like me? If you look at any clip online of a guy who has Rizz, or any guy in real life who seems to be charismatic and attractive, or actually any of my videos where I'm interacting with girls on this channel, you do not see that guy trying to explain to the girl why she should like him, or trying to win her over with some kind of logical argument or begging and pleading. You see him assuming that he has value, assuming that she would like him, assuming that's the natural course of events. And when you assume this to be so, within the interaction, it sort of becomes so. Inner Rizz concept number 2, filters of insecurity. Oftentimes, what occurs in an interaction is not based on literal fact, it's based on your interpretation in the interaction and her interpretation in the interaction. So a lot of times the exact same thing can be a compliment if taken one way or an insult if taken another way. I'll give you an example. Let's say someone says, hey, cool shirt, bro. And they may mean it in an ironic way, or they may be kind of biting about it. But if you just go, oh, thanks, man, I appreciate it, and treat it as though it's a compliment, for all intents and purposes, it just became a compliment. Or at the very least, if they want to make it not a compliment, they're going to have to go through kind of a lengthy argumentative process to get it. So by assuming it was a compliment, whether or not that was the case in the first place, you've just made it into a compliment. And this is something in game or in Rizz studies, I don't know what you would say there, that we would call misinterpretation. I'll give you a quick personal story as well to illustrate the opposite way that you could take things. When I was in college and not very good with girls yet, and I was just learning, I really wanted to be one of the cool kids. And there was this kid on my college soccer team, I was on the team as well, who was very, very good with girls, and I would have loved to meet girls with this guy. I would have loved to have learned from this guy and been friends with this guy. And it turned out that one day after soccer practice, we saw some girl in the cafeteria, and he pointed out that she was very cute. And I had started approaching girls. I had gotten this girl's number. I actually had a date scheduled with her. So I was like, oh, I actually have a date with her this weekend. He was like, really? And he was like shocked and taken aback, but also kind of impressed. And it was kind of cool. And then at soccer practice the next day or a few days later, we're standing in line for a drill, and I came over. He's like, what's up, playa? Right? Like playa, P-L-A-Y-A, right? But I was not prepared for him treating me with respect and thinking I was cool. I literally thought he said, what's up, Claire, as in the female name C-L-A-I-R-E. And I was like, looked at him funny, like, why are you calling me that? And then I went and did the drill. And then as I was finishing up the drill and going to the next line, I'm like, oh shit, he said playa. And I was super awkward about it. But I was not ready to be one of the cool kids. I was still filtering things through this identity of being one of the not cool kids. And that was affecting everything I was doing in life. So the point is this. How are you filtering information? When information comes to you, are you filtering it through this idea that I am amazing, I am cool, I'm the man, people like me? Or are you filtering it through the idea of, oh, I'm not cool, I'm not popular, they must have been insulting me, etc.? Because again, what you think is true sort of becomes true in the interaction. Inner Rizz concept number 3. Abundance or non-neediness. Let me just say to start off with, neediness is one of the least attractive qualities that a man can have when it comes to women. If you are needy for a particular woman, she has to ask herself why. If you're this invested in her, this wrapped up in her, that screams to her that she is your only option, that other girls don't like you, that you are not a high quality man. The opposite of a needy mentality, unattractive, is an abundance mentality, which is very, very attractive. So you have to understand there are nearly 8 billion people on the planet. Nearly half of those are women. That's 4 billion. Now, obviously, not all of those are attractive. Not all of those are your age range, but you have to assume that you're talking hundreds of millions of women that are, attractive in your age range, etc. And if you want even only the top, few percentages of those, maybe you're like 50 million or at least in the tens of millions of women on the planet that are available, attractive, could be attracted to you. So one woman is not someone to get completely wrapped up in. If she doesn't like you and you're an attractive, high-value man, which you believe you are, right? Then there are tons of other girls that will like you. Also, if you're able to attract a girl of a particular caliber once by being high value, you can attract a girl of equivalent value again and again and again by being high value. So you don't look at having met a girl as being lucky or getting lucky or I'm so glad she would have me. You look at it as I bring a lot of value to the table. Of course she would like me. And if she doesn't like me or if she doesn't turn out to be the right girl for me, there are plenty of other options. And this mentality is going to put you in a much stronger position within your relationships. And it's also going to make you much more attractive throughout the dating and courtship process. So now that we've talked about your internal beliefs, let's talk about what you do specifically and actively in the outside world to be more attractive, more charismatic, to basically get more girls. Outer Rizz concept number 1, be cocky. And by the way, I mean cocky, not just confident. Okay? Confident is good, but confident is not compelling or abrasive enough. Confident doesn't necessarily get noticed. Cockiness forces someone to pay attention, forces someone to take action. And the responses to being cocky actually end up pretty good for you. So say you start acting in a cocky way. Someone has to either, in response to that, assume that you actually are as good as you're claiming in being cocky, or they have to combat that cockiness. They have to give you shit or test you on that. And if you then pass that test, you're going to gain a lot of value from it. But what you're doing by being cocky is you're actually instigating response. You're actually instigating someone to feel a certain way emotionally about you. You're instigating someone to engage with you. And that is the first step in getting someone emotionally invested in you. Now, it is possible to be disliked or even hated if you're being cocky, but it's also possible to be loved. And what you should be aiming for if you really want to be attractive to women is not to be that guy that's sort of like passively kind of liked or disliked or tolerated. You need to be loved or hated. And ironically, by being willing to be hated, you will actually be loved much more often than you will be hated. But you do need to have a strong personality. You need to take strong stances and take strong risks. And so I suggest being a little bit cocky. And this has actually been backed up by some scientific studies. They have studies where they've asked men to walk around and act confident, and they asked women how attractive they found those men to be. And they asked men to walk around and be cocky, and they asked women how attractive they found those men to be. And the women actually found the cocky men to be more attractive. And this is for two reasons. Number one, because cockiness is more attractive than confidence. And number two, because probably the guys who were acting confident weren't going hard enough. They weren't making enough of an impression. They were probably acting like 5% confident. Whereas when you told someone to be cocky, they at least landed on being confident. Outer Rizz concept number 2. For the love of God, please flirt. Girls are not attracted to a guy who goes on a date and talks to her about his resume, or a guy who, lists off a series of places he's traveled to and doesn't talk about the emotional experience of that travel. Women are attracted to men who inspire an emotional response with them. So at the very least, when you talk, tell emotional stories. Talk about your experiences and things rather than just listing facts. But better yet, be playful and give the girl a hard time. She will appreciate it, especially if she's attractive. Very attractive girls have guys walking on eggshells around them trying to be polite and not offend them all day long. If you're actually a guy confident enough and willing to give the girl a hard time, you will stand out and she will appreciate it because she knows deep down that she doesn't deserve to have guys kissing her ass all the time. And she knows that a man who's her equal won't be constantly worried about offending her. He'll just be himself and have a good time. You should be as relaxed and fun and willing to tease around hot girls as you are around your best guy friends. Beyond that, if you can take that teasing and make it man to woman, now you're really in business. So instead of just giving a girl a hard time about some awkward thing she did, throw in a little thing like, yeah, you and I are not gonna get along now, or I'm breaking up with you now. Make it actually man to woman, and now you're really going somewhere. And you can actually do this very safely. If you tease them, they respond well, and then you make it man to woman afterwards, there's very little chance of rejection off of it. Another key point about teasing though, it's not just about what you say, it's about the tone. It's about the fact that you're being playful and having fun. The fact that you're loose and relaxed. So if you can be loose, relaxed, and give the girl a hard time, have fun with it, you're really, really doing well. And one of the absolute simplest ways to tease or flirt, because a lot of guys are very bad at it, is what I call a push-pull. A push-pull is where you give a girl a positive and a negative in quick succession. Kind of like if you ever saw the really old school cartoons where you have like the girl pulling out the petals, he loves me not. He loves me not. You want her to be feeling that. Does he like me? Does he not like me? I'm not really sure. So things like, I can't decide if I love you or if I hate you right now. Something like that is a push-pull, and it does trigger an emotional response. Those kind of things are very, very good. I'd be like, you're so cute, but you're such a dork. Also a push-pull. Outer Rizz concept number 3, and here I am veering a little past Rizz and into actual deeper game, because as I mentioned before, Rizz or charisma or getting that initial like suave response is one thing. Actually being effective is something else. But here's something you do need to know if you're gonna be successful with women at all, which is this. Most of the time, no matter how much the girl likes you, you're the one who's going to have to make moves. This was something I learned very painfully early on when I was learning to be good with girls. I went on date after date after date, and I focused on being witty, being charming, these kind of things. What I didn't do was kiss the girl. And I went on date after date after date without kissing the girl, and sometimes I'd get a second date or even a third date and not kiss the girl. And eventually they'd get bored or they'd realize I'm clueless or like lame or that I'd never been with a girl before, and they would lose interest. Finally, the first girl I ever kissed was actually the first girl I slept with, and I've made it a point to kiss girls ever since then. It has done very well for me. The point is, you typically are going to be the one that has to make a move. You typically are going to be the one that's going to have to ask her out. You typically are going to be the one that's going to have to go for the kiss. If you're at a nightclub, you typically have to be the one to suggest the next venue you go to together if you're going to take the girl home. You as the man typically have to make the move, and this makes sense because for women, there's a lot of pressure to not appear slutty. There's a lot of pressure to preserve their social reputation, and so they don't want to be the one who made a move or who appears too easy or anything like that. So usually you are going to have to make the move. When you see the signs a girl likes you, go ahead and move it forward. Go ahead and try to progress the interaction somewhere. Now you want to do this in small steps. You obviously want to get consent, etc. But you as a man typically are the one who's going to have to make the moves. So those are some of the critical fundamentals of Rizz or game or whatever you want to call it. But if you actually want to get good at this, you're going to have to go further. You're going to have to take some action. I would suggest watching the other videos on this channel, subscribe so you don't miss them. I also would say you have to go out and talk to real girls in the real world. Sitting in front of a computer and watching theory all day long is not gonna get you there. You have to go talk to real girls. You need to go say hi to that cute girl in your class. You have to ask out that girl who always gives you the eyes across the room at Starbucks. Okay, you need to actually get real world reference. As you do, these tips I just gave you are going to be incredibly useful, and you're going to understand them so much better on such a deeper level. This is just the beginning. The theory is great. It's absolutely essential, but go out there, take action, talk to some real girls, and practice your Rizz out there in the real world. Thank you for watching my lecture on Rizzonomics. See you on the next one.